about was that, in your opinion, the level of success hasn't been there for Bahamians doing music. Some people define success as monetization. Some define it as fame, having their songs played on the radio. What do you define as success for a Bahamian doing music?
You can't overlook any of those things. Monetization and airplay is a major part of success. Otherwise, unless you're doing it for saving people's souls or what you call that thing, any spiritual reasons, obviously you're looking for some returns. And I think most of the young people who you see doing the music business nowadays, that is what they're after. They see the Jay-Z's and they see the other persons doing this hip-hop thing or rap, and they're trying to be that as well. So based upon what I see they're looking for, the success, it has not been achieved because none of them have gotten out to the world in that regard. I'm on a different tip. My success is, I left Bahamian because they changed the sound from what I thought it should be. So my success would be recognition of this, would be the pride of knowing that when you see me, you know I'm Bahamian. When you hear that, you'll say, that's some music from the Bahamas. Then I know the money and all the stuff will come right behind that.
So the vehicle for achieving that success, you don't walk around and see people with their catchphrases on their T-shirts. You don't walk into a store, places like the jukebox are now closed.
Absolutely.
How is that success going to be achieved from a monetization standpoint? And what recommendations do you have for
It's going to have to be clearly, like I said earlier, the country is going to have to be a part of this thing. It cannot be a one-off, and that's what's going on now. You'll have the Freguson doing something, and that song will last for a week, and then the next person will come on, that song will be on for a week, and the Freguson song will be taken off the charts, and so forth. And in the same time, though, you have a proliferation of everybody else coming in here every week and every day. So I think what's going to happen, there's going to have to be a come-together of something, but you can't build a house without a foundation. And the foundation to me is understanding what it is you're trying to promote. If we say we're a melting pot as the country, then that's fine. Everyone do whatever they want, and you can always, the Bahamian, anything done by a Bahamian will be Bahamian music. If we say we're going to be sovereign and we're an independent nation and we want to have our own identity, then the first thing is defining what it is that we want to promote. And everyone is not going to do it. Everyone is not going to agree. But if everybody knows that I get the support from my government, as Jamaicans did with Manley and Siega back in the day, then the difference though were they were involved in the music industry. They were leaders, but they were involved in the industry. We don't have that here. All of our leaders are basically lawyers. So we need someone in that area who has the passion to establish that foundation, which is going to be whatever. We can call the music boogaloo for all I care. But we need to determine whatever it is that makes it what it is. Once we start on that area and allow everyone to attempt to build on that, it's going to take a while because it's really finding the whole thing. But we at least need to start from somewhere, and I think that is what's going to make the difference.
So building the brand of Bahamian music, a lot of these, building the brand of Bahamian music, and the proliferation of understanding, okay, this is going to be the foundation musically, rake and scrape. But then there's a difference musically between Gumbe and rake and scrape. So then when you want to add reggaeton on top of it, or you want to add hip-hop on top of it, it's still relative to interpretation. How do you reconcile that and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like?
When you hear reggae, for example, I don't care what you put on top of it. Reggae is the foundation. There's no question what that is, That's why I said when you flip it, you change the whole context. But that's where we need to get to the establishment of the sound, whatever it is. I know in my head what I know the sound should be, but it's not up to me completely. I'm just saying, as a nation, either through the Ministry of Culture or through the Department of Culture, where we establish a body that does the research and determine that this is going to be into the curriculum of the Ministry of Education, and then all these pieces need to come together. Then the tourism product now becomes something different, because they can say, I'm going to the Bahamas. When you get on the airplane, you're going to hear whatever that is. When you come off that cruise ship, you're going to see a band playing whatever that is. So until we do that foundational thing, and it's going to take some work, like I'm saying, it's not going to happen tomorrow. This cultural foreigner era that we're in now, you're going to have to write that off. Just let it be what it is. But in the process of developing who we are, someone is going to have to say, I'm going to make so much funds available in our budget where we're going to encourage anyone who produces this music. You can get some studio time, you're going to get this, but you're going to have to find a way to light the fire. And once the fire is lit, I think it's going to spread globally.
Okay, you talk about an investment. There was talk in the news recently with Sony Latin America being interested in a joint venture with the Bahamas government to form a branch of Sony here to empower and put Bahamian music on the map. In some interpretations, we've heard it discussed that they want exactly what the Bahamian sound is. That's what they want to have proliferate. And then in other instances, we've heard, the sip that Sony's then reaching out with, the main artists that they decided to kind of pilot the program with, which is the Bahamian, to have their music produced in Florida by, Jamaican producer. So how do we then, as the musical community, reach out to, do we reach out to our Prime Minister, our MP? Who do we reach out to say, hey, we want a voice?
That's what we need to. The same thing. That's what I said earlier. Sony will only promote what they are told, basically, that this is the music. A lot of those people are not from here. And if they come here now and they hear this other thing that they call Bahamian, because anything done by a Bahamian, and that's going to say, well, there's a potential Rihanna, there's a potential Jay-Z, and we're going to call that Bahamian music. And the true Bahamians like myself will have a fit, because I will know that is not me. That's not the voice that I speak with. So the reach out, I think, has to be to our Prime Minister, or we need to encourage him to develop. As I said earlier, Barbados has a National Cultural Foundation, which is an autonomous body that's attached to their Ministry of Culture, whose responsibility is the preservation of all the cultural artistic aspects in the country. And so they have the leaders of the rake and scrape, for example, who go out and make sure that the rake and scrape is learned. They'll have the leaders of the visual arts and so I think we need that kind of program started now, where the only way you're going to preserve this thing, and like I said earlier, let the people who do it, we're not stopping you from doing what you want to do. This is a free country. You can be Byron Lee was one of the biggest soca artists in the Caribbean, but he's Jamaican. But you will never hear him tell you that soca is his music. It's a business thing for him. So we just need to let those people do whatever they want to do. Nobody's stopping you from being a rock and roll artist, but you can't allow you to go to the world and say rock and roll is the Bahamian music, because it cannot be. We need to determine what it is. Like I say, I believe it should be rake and scrape. I've been pushing that for a little while, but we have to clearly determine that from a governmental perspective, from a policy perspective, where we find ways to encourage. I believe that the Compass Point, the Compass Point Studios, that's a very historic piece of property in the country. Very historic piece of property. Everyone recorded in that, from Bob Marley to Al Green to Julio Iglesias. I don't see why the government shouldn't purchase that building and put a studio in there. And just encourage Bahamians to come and experiment with these rhythms that we have. If you watch the end of Michael Jackson's video, Remember the Time, when he turns into dust, there's a solo Junkanoo drum in the end of it.
Wow. How did that get in there, I wonder?
There's a Junkanoo rhythm at the end of that, and I believe Teddy Riley came here, because they always hear during Junkanoo. Right. Now, as I got an angry outburst earlier about Junkanoo. Even Junkanoo has been changed. The rhythm of Junkanoo is not Junkanoo any longer. It's very hip-hop now, even on Bay Street. The swing is completely gone to another direction. But if you have this body that I talked about earlier that's in place for the preservation of that sound, they'll ensure that the younger people know the difference. Because the junior junkanoo are being trained in that swing hip-hop rhythm. In another couple of years, they'll be senior junkanoo. So we're wiping out that whole area. So we need to build that foundation. And I think, like I said, I went all around the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole compass point thing, though,
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
could be an avenue if the government would put some funds aside and say, we'll put some funds with sponsorship from Atlantis and Bahama and so forth, and we put a program in place to encourage the development of junkanoo music or Rican street music. And purchase that building, make it a historic landmark, because that should be part of the tour of what the tourists see in the Adelaide area. And then we can see that we're starting to develop this thing.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Ferguson.
Okay,
It was
question.
so, it's great getting the musical perspective from a musician to talk about the difference between the syncopation and the rhythm. And we also want to ensure that from a DI Radiocast perspective, that we're giving as much of the full scope as we can. So I want to thank you so much
I appreciate it.
for having us.
Hope I answered all the questions. I know you were told that I'm going to be combative and all that other stuff.
No, you weren't!
Most of the younger artists, they used to hate me before. But now they're starting to come around to the sense of discussion, because we have 300,000 people in the Bahamas. If you sell CDs to 100,000 of them, you're a millionaire.
Definitely. And I think people from the merchandising standpoint, I think we're a little far off from understanding how we can monetize that experience. When a liquor sponsor pays you to go perform on their grounds, and that's it.
Yeah.
You just walk away. You didn't have a table at the back of the room where you sold your merchandise and
That's right.
increased your fan base. So that's the part that's really missing.
But the fan base for the music that they're doing now is small. You see, if they do our music, they get bigger sales. Ronnie Butler sells.
Internationally.
And not only internationally, I'm not even
locally.
interested in I'm not even interested in anything international, because there's enough money to be made here. I'm just saying, you have 300,000 persons. If you sell 100,000 at $10 a CD, you're a millionaire here.
Okay.
But the people here are not going to buy you singing in an American accent on a hip hop track. If you do a good enough Bahamian song, I guarantee you, just ask you, Emily, and ask Ronnie Butler and those people who have been able to survive. Now, it goes in spurts, because we have not been consistent enough. But when you have a good song that's out,
Right.
if you handle it, ask Katie.
Definitely.
You can survive locally, but you have to give the people the music in their voice. If you bring it to them in another voice, you're not going to make it, and that's why you're starting to look in that foreign market, which is even a tougher market to break. Okay, and I stop.
Well, thank you for tuning in to diRadiocast.com, the evolution of Bahamian music in the digital era. This is PJ Douglas Sands signing off.